Hi and welcome to the annual predictions based on astrology for the year 2021. To point out just the three main things about this year, I would say January looks like a really wild month with a lot of changes and surprising developments and potentially major accidents or disasters. And also through this year and into November, through November of 2022, we will have on-off square between Saturn and Uranus, and this will be this background slow evolving transit that will correspond to both potentially market fluctuations with market going down usually at the times of the period of these transits being more exact, and also with geopolitical changes of the nature where we have this Saturn conservative kind of a status quo side or ideology clashing with Uranian ideas, which would be more of the favoring things that are liberal, revolutionary, and rapid changes, or perhaps things that just go through any sort of limits or any sort of restrictions. And third main influence is something that I will be covering more in a separate video that will focus on predictions for US. But generally, this will be something that may relate to US policies regarding US dollar, and also at the same time may coincide with fluctuations in the value of gold and or possibly silver. And that's for the month of April, August, and December of 2021, where we will see again either fluctuations in the US currency, dollar, and those may be either three independent developments, or this could be a related sort of a sequence of events where something first comes up in April, then is revised in August and finalized by December. So now what I'll do is I'll go through my predictions for each month separately. And I will then, these will be global predictions, and then I will post in upcoming weeks videos that will touch on predictions specifically for the US and China, because I have seen that developments in those countries affect major stock market moves. So for the month of January 2021, as I mentioned, that this month I believe is going to be quite a wild month, both in terms of general global events, potential for either accidents or disasters, as well as for stock market fluctuations. And I guess things may start getting really crazy, I would say, from about the 8th, and it will remain this way through approximately February 11. And the entire month may see increased volatility in the stock market, potential for major reversals in the overall stock market direction. And let's see, in specifically, I would pay attention to the 14th when we will have Uranus turn direct after being retrograde for a while. So that's when we will see maybe increase in focus on all the Uranian things, which is like freedom, human rights, equality, and as well as any sort of revolutionary ideas, but also go into an extreme situations, ideas, or I guess even scientific discoveries that basically go beyond any sort of limitations, maybe space exploration, but also in the markets there may be kind of wild swings, because again, either limits are broken or disrespected, as in like just things kind of shoot through any sort of expectations. And it definitely will be a month of surprises, and 13th to 14th is when there may be some specific kind of surprising events occurring where we will see a reversal in the direction which may again be significant and be associated with market direction change as well. And in addition to all these sort of like space exploration, airlines, and maybe electricity, power generating companies, electric car companies, so that will be one sort of area, high tech, IT, Those will be the areas affected this entire month by these surprising activities and potentially some reversals in maybe their projects that they have started, or some projects abruptly coming to an end, or financing either begins suddenly or dries out. Another area, since Uranus currently is passing through Taurus, that might be affected by various reversals, surprises, and sudden changes in policies, or in, like I said, projects abruptly starting, stopping, or companies perhaps ceasing to exist or changing their status, will be financial sphere. So banks, financial institutions, currencies, especially cryptocurrencies, any sort of even financial policies. There may be some sudden and unexpected changes and surprising turns of events. And let's see. Additionally, at this time, we may experience kind of wild, unusual weather, and this may specifically have to do with like air, so anything to do with storms or hurricanes, typhoons, ice storms, etc. And that may be accompanied by power outages, service outages, windy weather, and it may also then cause accidents. And these kind of accidents, I would say, if I had to pick one day for the entire month, I would focus on the 24th of January. And I think that around that time, there may unfortunately be a possibility of something fairly major, where previous, I guess, times where there were similar events where, Titanic sank, or there was this cavern, I guess, in Louisiana, where there was basically this bayou carne sinkhole that had formed, and also maybe excessive snowfall may cause, say, a roof to collapse, or some other kind of major disaster that may involve both the element of air, so maybe excessive winds lead to some problems, but also element of water, maybe either too much snow or floods or waves that are maybe overturning a boat and the boat sinks. So this combination of excessive precipitation, again, could be snow, could be ice, as well as windy conditions, may cause some problems. So this could be for airplanes, anything that's flying, or anything that's, again, in the water, uses water as a means of transportation, underwater, etc. This could also be like an oil spill, some contamination, or it could be contamination of, say, an potable a water supply for like some sort of municipality, unfortunately, or spread of some, bacteria somewhere, again, through like these excessively wet sort of conditions. And because of the strong Uranian influence this month of January, things may evolve extra sort of fast. So say there's a disaster, like some, ship is sinking, etc. And there may even be boats, like the lifeboats on board of this larger ship. But because of the rapidly unfolding situations, there may be very little time to actually get out. So if, God forbid, you're experiencing any sort of risky situations, then I would say, one, try to avoid such situations in general, and especially in January. And two, definitely, if you need to get out of somewhere, then definitely do it fast, because things may be unfolding faster than expected. And finally, there's an increased probability of things like mudslides, earthquakes, something collapsing, like a mine or a structure, and escalating tensions, skirmishes, involving some militaries of various countries. And generally speaking, the entire month is volatile, but especially 9th through the 21st may see these kind of skirmishes or tensions popping up basically all over the world. Let's see, and for the market volatility, I would say specifically for the stock market, the dates that are significant would be, again, from about the 10th of January through, I would say, 11th of February. And around the 11th through 12th of January, there may be some legal announcement or about some contract or sale, or maybe, negotiations of some sort that are significant. Again, at that time, things may be finalized in some legal way in the court. However, that kind of a legal fight, or maybe there is a sale, but one of the partners is maybe challenging some conditions of it, or some third parties challenging that, and that kind of fight, either involving courts or involving some legal disputes, would continue the entire week of January 11th and may actually escalate into the 14th, on which, like I said before, this might be a day of some reversals. Potentially there may be an overturned decision at that time. And then further into the 17th through the 24th, so whatever the issue that is being brought into either courts or some legal challenge around the 12th to 11th through 12th of January, the legal fight may escalate and pick up again on the 17th through the 24th. And as I mentioned before, 24th is just is the most significant date maybe of the month, where there may be some disasters, accidents, and it may also be a significant day for the markets. I think it's Sunday, so whatever the events that occur on that day, it may affect markets, obviously, when the markets open. And of course, for the US, and I will have separate predictions for the US, but just to mention, 20th obviously is presidential inauguration date there, but it's interesting that specifically on that day, these transits between various planets are quite precise, and at the very minimum, I would expect like really bad sort of conditions, weather conditions, maybe excessive winds, but also power outages, or some just surprises, as well as dangerous circumstances such as anything that involves fire, explosions, kind of just attacks or anger, and or some shocking event, something that's unexpected but also has an element of the very minimum anger in it, if not worse. But also the challenges may be again of legal nature, but like I said, this I believe will continue through until the 24th, and it definitely is going to continue, I would say, pretty much the entire month, but at least through the 24th, so it goes beyond the 20th of day of inauguration. Let's see. And if there is indeed inauguration on the 20th, and let's say it's just only bad weather, the day may still be full of surprises, and again, there still will continue to be some legal challenges there, regardless of who's the president and what exactly happens on the 20th. And there will continue to be through, let's say, the end of the month, especially through the 24th and on the 24th, increased probability of continuing these either protests or fires or explosions, and something may get out of control, both in the stock market. Maybe things go really wild, literally whatever, if there's some restrictions, not restrictions, but some limits that may be basically surpassed in some ways, or there could be an accident involving something that's flying and or moving through water, or both. Like I said, maybe there's a plane or a drone, for example, and it crashes into water, something along those lines. And then on the 28th, let's say another important date of January, where there may be more news about some legal decisions, or perhaps international relations, immigration, and maybe long-distance transportation, maybe some sort of import-export deal. And at that time, there may be some news related to like taxes, debt, loan, and some governmental decisions regarding either, again, financial policies, tariffs, taxes, and rates. So entire month looks quite busy. And so then into early February, throughout say 11th of February, is when we will see this volatility. So then in the beginning of February, especially 4th through the 6th, is when we can expect perhaps market experiencing some difficulties, as in there may be concerns about cash availability for the banks, concerns about earnings, especially for areas related to like airlines, high-tech, IT, electrics or power generating companies, electric car companies, etc. And so these anything that's like high-tech social media. So there may be some concerns about either some extreme, not excessive regulations on those or losses experienced by those companies. And that's 4th through the 6th. The market may go down at that time. However, by the 10th and 11th of February, I think there might be some kind of hopes or optimism may kind of start creeping back up, and the 10th and 11th of February actually look like positive, kind of more optimistic, happy days where the market may go up. There may be some hype or optimism, and again, especially about, say, if there were tensions internationally or some international deal was being signed or some concerns about tariffs, etc. At that time, they may actually, the outlook may look maybe better. The earnings may improve, or some legal decisions are either finalized or passed that again that the investors will see as profitable, and so, or international deal is reached that again is seen as profitable, and this may boost the stock market. So let's see. Also, I guess going back slightly to January, but also to cover the entire sort of year and even into 2022, as I mentioned, throughout the year on off, we will have this square between Saturn and Uranus, and that is something that will basically bring about a clash of some ideas or industries. Perhaps some of the ideas that are associated with Uranus would be maybe again IT or high tech or even social media, doing things sort of through some online, basically through the internet, maybe buying, selling things online, the development of some space technologies, cutting edge, self-driving cars, anything also that involves with basically equality and freedoms, etc. And then we have the forces that are more symbolized by Saturn, which, on the negative side could be things that are super conservative, kind of just let's retain the status quo, let's not do any changes whatsoever. At the same time, the positive could be let's do things that are safe. So before we release something, we have to make sure that all the safety checks have gone through, or let's not go and break all the rules and break all the limits, and there need to be some limitations. Obviously, things need to be in balance. However, with the square between these two planets, sort of there's exactly the difficulty of this. The transit is going to be that there will be difficulty balancing those two energies, and that will continue through about November 2022 on off. But both the period of January, especially 9th through the 22nd, we'll see significant, beyond all these other wild things that may be happening, the surprises, we will see even stronger sort of clash between these kind of two energies. And then it will then pick up again in February, so about 13th of February through March 5th. Then in June 3rd through the 25th, so almost the entire month. And then in addition to that, late June through early July looks like a pretty tense time period, because these two planets, Saturn and Uranus, in the square will be joined by Mars to form a T-square, and that really looks like quite a significantly difficult time period, and I'll touch on that when we get to that chronologically. But then to point out other period of specifically Uranus and Saturn square, we will get December 15th through 31st, and then again in 2022, September 14th through October 30th. So multiple periods, but basically this will be a background influence, and it may lead to, like I said, ideological clashes, suppressed sort of market, or just geopolitical tensions. And this could be this ongoing slow-simmering battle between either entities that are representing these different type of industries. By industries, I mean something that's maybe, let's do, old style, large corporation is in charge and kind of things are progressing slowly, or some bureaucratic kind of approach of doing things, versus like maybe startups or some new innovative ways of launching rockets into space. So there may be this ongoing simmering battle, basically how much is enough in terms of the controls, and is the control, or are the controls sort of precluding things developing freely and without limits. And at the same time, there may be argument, okay, well, we need to have some limits. Things can't just be completely wild, and there should be anarchy. Let's see. And at the same time, during these peak times that I just mentioned, and I will be posting also things in writing, in written form on my blog at tostunka.com, so it's a little bit easier to kind of look up those dates. At the times when Saturn-Uranus square transit will be exact, we will also experiencing potentially difficulties or some fluctuations in the price of cryptocurrencies, and that's because Saturn tends to again impose some limitations. There either can be losses or restrictions or delays, so these kind of abrupt maybe swings and things kind of going perhaps up or even down fast whenever this Saturn will come into the picture to form more of a tighter square with Uranus. Things will slow down, and perhaps the value of some of the cryptocurrencies may drop at those exact aspect times. There may also be increased governmental regulations and controls imposed on some of the sort of cryptocurrencies or their trading, or there could be just losses, and therefore some projects may be canceled, or something may be reduce maybe a number of locations, accessible hours, or something that basically makes things a little bit more regulated on one hand, but also slows down the progress. And things may take a little bit longer than expected during again the times when the square is exact. So if there's this project that's really rapidly developing, and there's this innovation of some sort, whenever the Saturn is going to kind of form a tighter transit to Uranus, those developments or those innovative kind of projects may slow down, and they may not be canceled, but they may slow down due to additional scrutiny, regulations, or some limitations. So then to continue where we left off in terms of February, like I said, pretty much the entire month of January through, say, February 11th looks really wild. So then what happens after that? So starting from about the 13th through the 19th of February, there may be again increased news about various legal decisions or international projects, collaborative sort of international projects, long distance transportation, foreign relations, partnerships, like tariffs, international deals, long distance travel or shipments. And again, those may be focused on companies that are related to IT, aerospace, airlines, telecommunications, social media, finance, and cryptocurrencies. So there too may be some either disruptive news, so perhaps some new laws and regulations may be imposed, and maybe what can or cannot be, say, transported across borders, or there may be some additional checks that something needs to be passed before it can be, say, imported or exported. And the news about these regulations may start around the 13th of February, and then there may be progressively sort of increasing concerns about restrictions, and they may be increasing, and I guess maybe reach peak around the 19th of February. So that's, I guess, for February in terms of just what are the key highlights. Let's now move on to March. So for March, 3rd through the 4th of March, see again returns or focus on legal issues that first may come up around 13th and 14th of February. And again, these could be related to either IT or airlines or cryptocurrencies or banks. Again, not just banks, but more like their sort of financial policies that again relate to exchanging data or protecting customer data. And these decisions at this time on the 3rd and the 4th of March may actually be supportive of these businesses, and something like maybe permission is granted to maybe implement some sort of new technological way of, say, sending data, or if there's a shipment that needs to go through and has been waiting for for permission to basically resume shipping or travel, or some legal issue that needed to be resolved before something can be shipped at that time. That's when we may expect such a decision. The value of such businesses may also increase. Value of cryptocurrencies may also go up. So the 3rd and 4th of March look good for any sort of high-tech, IT, telecommunication, airlines, electric cars type of businesses. On the 11th through the 14th of March, and especially on the 12th, there may be increased focus on Neptunian sort of subjects, where we are talking about oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, water in any sort of shape or form. And at that time, there might be some focus on the value of either these products or businesses, and potentially their value may go up, and or there may be news about like new leaders or new projects or new sort of goals and I guess new sort of vision for some of these businesses. Let's see, then 19th through the 23rd of March looks like a time that also can be overall auspicious for these similar businesses that I just mentioned, that may have some boost given to them by some legal decisions on the 3rd and 4th of March. So again, IT, telecommunications, airlines, aerospace exploration, any sort of innovative technologies that are applied to banking or cryptocurrencies. And at that time, we may hear about some projects that may bring long-term improvements. So maybe some improved ways of manufacturing something, or some process is improved to make things kind of either safer or more, I guess, efficient, improve logistics of something, maybe something, some part or some engine that can generate more power for an airplane or electric car, or some scientific research may come up with some new cool discoveries that again would benefit some of these high-tech sort of industries, or some engineering improvements are made. And then it may start a little bit better on the 19th of March. Towards the 22nd, 23rd, there may be slightly stressful news coming up, or some concerns about these same industries, where maybe if maybe some contract was pending or some sales was being discussed prior to that, something may be now finalized. However, the minor, I guess, concern would be that the details may not be quite known or available. So maybe there may be, on the one hand, this optimism about things progressing well and this long-term perspectives look good, and maybe a contract is finalized or a sale is finalized or some new project has finally begun. But there may be some concern about, like I said, missing details or some vagueness about how exactly will this occur or by when. Let's see, then on the 25th and through the 27th of March, there may be increased news about either new projects or leaders related to communication and transportation industries. And it may particularly involve either, say, weapons, military, also sports, especially related to any risky kind of, or more like macho sports, like some fighting or racing or engines, cars, etc. So it could be literally related to, say, transportation, as in like sports that involves, cars, or it could be about, say, sales or movement of troops, or sales or movement of weapons due to these, due to these negotiations of some sort. At the same time, there may also be accidents, or increased probability of accidents, because of things going kind of too fast, or something overheating, or there being too kind of a impatient, aggressive attitude. And again, whether it's related to sports, someone's driving just really fast and there's kind of a disregard for safety, or there's some military skirmishes and just things boil over and result in, in an accident. And the accidents or some incidents may involve, again, transportation and communication situations. So again, like a car, airplane, bike, etc. And it may also involve a famous person, especially someone who is a male, young person, and it's either somebody who is like a student or a news personality, or somebody who is, again, very like communicative, talkative, or travels frequently. So basically like this young male, kind of a fairly well-connected, I guess, person, potentially maybe could be an athlete who, say, rides a bike or something like that. Let's see. Or it could be not necessarily even an accident, but maybe it's somebody who's, again, a young male and they're just like extra a little bit much, or they talk so much to the point where they say something that's an offensive thing to say to somebody, and therefore they will get like a lot of slack, on social media over basically saying something that they shouldn't have, and therefore, the news will be somewhat upsetting to people because of that. Let's see, and then in general, 22nd through the 29th of March may see increased news about like education, students, teachers, and there may either be some arguments over some of these areas, perhaps arguments over whether or not there should be a continued online education, or things may perhaps need to go into like classrooms or something like that, or maybe teacher union will have some complaints or something of those lines. But there may be some disagreements, if not like arguments, perhaps on how to teach, who should go where, how to protect students, or how to sort of train them in terms of like athletic activities. So the situations may be either just arguments or disagreements, or there may also be some element of either danger or risk to them. Again, it could be just discussions about sports, or it could be discussions about basically safety of students, and that's sort of 22nd through the 29th of March. So now let's continue on to April. April, the 6th through the 10th of April, looks like a significant time. Yet again, we will hear some news about like oil, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and all kinds of Neptunian subjects. So it could be Navy, anything that moves through water, underwater, etc., and as well as the water itself, or something that's liquid, so contamination of water, or contamination, for example, of water with oil, or perhaps with like some bacterial contamination, or maybe infectious disease, especially the one that spreads through water or through like damp spaces. And it could be affecting news also about communication and transportation. So perhaps concerns about travel, like via cars or airplanes, or perhaps transportation of, say, pharmaceuticals like vaccines, or transportation of oil, etc. And let's see, and also possibly continuing focus on education. And at this time, so the 6th through the 10th of April, we may also hear about changes in the value of the related products and services. So maybe of, say, prices of oil, or of some medicine, or perhaps accidents that involve oil or gas leaks, or some contamination, like a spill, or maybe some pharmaceutical trial doesn't go quite as expected, or maybe marina or boat catches fire, or some situation where maybe somebody who's not mentally stable gets into trouble by, say, like all these shooters, or starts fire, or does something like that. And let's see, there may also be news about other Neptunian areas, such as music or movies that are related to, say, water, about like a storm or navy. And at the same time, the 6th through the 10th of April looks somewhat stressful for the stock market, so I think those will likely be down market days at the same time. Then 13th through the 19th of April actually may see opportunities or positive kind of good time for communication transportation industries, also for education, social media, and things like cars, airplanes. And there may again be some legal decisions that are related to like travel, immigration, and foreign relations, or sales, or commerce, but those will be like positive, supportive decisions that might make these areas, the communication, transportation, kind of easier, especially across borders, by perhaps maybe facilitating, visas that people can get for travel, or just kind of improving things again through some legal means or legal agreements. And there may also be optimism or improved news for like online shopping. And also this is a good time for any sort of international negotiations, so those might go well. Some contracts, travel, all of those things should be experiencing kind of this positive sort of a boost at that time. And this would include also any sort of military cooperation or even sales of weapons, and especially something that's like travels through air and is fast, so like drones or rockets, etc. And also around the same time, so starting from the 13th through, I'd say, 27th of April, there may be focus on US financial policies, value of US dollar, and gold. And I would say this looks positive for possibly both, I guess, US dollar and gold. So the policies that are implemented at the time may actually be somehow helping US dollar, and as well as helping to increase profits from, again, communication, transportation industries. And that's happening for the US. And again, I'll have a separate video on the US, but then globally it will also be a time that's beneficial for communication, transportation industries. Then on April 21st through 24th, there may be some surprising news or unexpected news or just increased news about forex or cryptocurrencies, banks, and financial policies. And some things may come up that are either surprising or unexpected, or the value kind of level or is kind of higher or much lower or higher than expected. I would say probably higher. So things may there may be increased profits, or the value of certain like cryptocurrencies may go up perhaps beyond what was expected. And certainly may bring surprising developments on that 21st through the 24th of April. And then 23rd through the 25th of April, so shortly after this kind of this focus on cryptocurrencies or in forex, there will be time of sort of a maybe a little bit of a pullback. Perhaps market then goes down, where after this initial boost and rally or some exciting mood, there might be sort of a pause, or mood may change to more sort of conservative or careful, and focus would be on preserving the wealth, preserving the sort of cash, and making sure that there is enough cash on hand. And if something becomes like unstable a little bit on the 21st through the 22nd of April, again through some policy, and suddenly some currency pair or some cryptocurrency jumps through the roof, on the 23rd or the 25th of April is where there may be pullback, and perhaps people will be taking profits, or just that there may be some limits implemented because something just went kind of too wild, out of control. And that would be to help ensure cash availability and some stability and of the cash flow, I guess. So now let's talk about May. So May, I would say the 17th of May looks like a significant day, where specifically on the day there might be important announcements about communication, transportation industries, and their value of the products or services they provide may go up. 19th through the 23rd of May may see increased news about, again, Neptunian subjects such as oil, gas, navy, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and there may be some concerns about those, and the market may go down at that time. Let's see, 26th through the 27th of May, again, the subjects of oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, navy, excessively wet weather, etc. may yet again come up. However, at this time they will be stronger than even they were on the 19th through the 23rd. And there may be another dip in the market, like say on the 26th, followed immediately by a reversal and a rally perhaps on the 27th. So there may be some sort of this V-shaped move around the 26th and 27th of May, where something dips, but then immediately it's followed by a rally. And there also may be a time of excessive precipitation or dealing with, floods or just rains, etc. Then the 28th, I would say the end of the month, and especially on the 31st of May, there may be some increased news about, again, similar subjects, again, excessive precipitation, oil, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, gas, etc. But at this point, at the end of May, it will really become, I would say, an even greater either problem, or there may be sort of like maybe there's a region that suffered from some floods or rains, and at the end of May, it's hit again. So at that point, things really kind of are overwhelming, and things may be, the flow, if there's, say, a flow of water, it may be unobstructed to the point where just like, barriers that previously were erected no longer work because there's just too much. Things are just kind of flooded too much. At the same time, if something is being shipped through the water, maybe there are a lot of ships, again, they're basically able to move things through the water, or there's a pipe and things just flow again for better or worse. So if, say, something was not moving as fast, now things are moving through, and perhaps at the same time it could go to the point where there are too many ships, or there's too much high volume of, say, gas or oil is going through the pipe, or like I said, there's too much water to the point where it's kind of enough and too much and things are being flooded. And at the same time, it may also be where maybe there are too much of a certain medicine is being kind of moved around, and is just maybe makes things kind of obviously devalued because there's too much availability. But also it is the time at very end of May where there may be increased news about like infectious diseases or perhaps contaminated water supply, with some sort of bacterial pathogen, food poisoning, whether it's because maybe agricultural area is somehow, flooded and there's just some sort of a runoff gets into the municipal water supply, or the spill of chemicals contaminates soil and, again, unfortunately, water. So the entire month of May, things kind of may build up to these kind of news. Again, it could just start with 19th, 23rd, a little bit of, rain and floods, and 26th, 27th, things may get worse. And then 28th through the 31st, and especially 31st, may see like kind of almost like a peak of such concerns. However, if something needs to, say, go via water or be shipped through water or be spread through water, through music, or through some sort of even a spiritual sort of message at the same time, this may actually be a time where such spread may be more successful. Also, this goes for, say, lies or some belief in something that's like supernatural, or something that doesn't exist. So there's definitely a potential for some delusion and confusion at the same time as well. So there's obviously always potential for something to manifest positively as well as negatively. And finally, on the 31st of May, in addition to it being maybe a day of news about floods, or perhaps some news about pharmaceuticals, chemicals, etc., we may also hear about either a new leader or some news about somebody who's already like a prominent person, perhaps an actor, or head of some corporation, and especially in the areas of like transportation, communication, or perhaps somebody who's like in charge of making a really large important sale. So there may be this new person that becomes a head of some corporation, or corporation itself is again related to communication, transportation, and there may be a change in leadership, and perhaps again could be associated with this person somehow is being involved in the sale or acquisition on behalf of that company. So let's see, now we're moving into the month of June. And as I mentioned before, in June there will be almost the entire month this sort of stressful influence of Uranus square Saturn, so a little bit of kind of increased tensions in that sense. But then specifically 22nd through the 24th of June are worth mentioning, especially the 23rd. There may be some reversals in terms of decisions, maybe related to like some sort of financial regulations or taxes or insurance, and prices of real estate, And there may be some either extreme reached at that time, like a high or a low in terms of those prices, and then things may reverse. And or if there's a contract pending, again, there may be some reversal in the decision around the 23rd especially. And there may also be increased news about borrowing money or rates, bank policies at that time. And then at the very end of June, and I would say 29th of June, but then through July 9th, this could be, even though it's obviously time of the Independence Day and the holidays, usually in the US, and of course holidays in general in Northern Hemisphere, about, summertime, etc. However, this is actually a very difficult time of the year. I would say one of the more difficult time periods, and that's because we will have Mars forming a T-square with Saturn and Uranus at the same time. And typically, I looked in the past what usually would coincide with something like that. And yes, we did have various accidents, like airplane accidents, for example, things, sinking and things going down fast and faster than expected. So it could be like market volatility, accidents, especially like airplane or anything that's moving fast, suddenly comes to an abrupt stop and or explodes. Stop is the Saturn, obviously. Explosion, fire, or heating is Mars. And or there may be just some general geopolitical instability, and this could be a background influence in the month of June. But by the very end of June and into early July, it may actually be reaching sort of these explosive levels because of Mars. Mars can kind of push things towards the over the edge, rather, in terms of actually expressed violence or anger, protest, riots, etc. In terms of the actual weather, it could be too hot, too windy, or hot and windy at the same time. So if things may be difficult in that sense, but also in the past there were a lot of mudslides, earthquakes, but specifically also mudslides at those similar under similar transits, maybe volcanoes, but basically land sliding suddenly, or some large mass suddenly kind of going down again really fast. Also shakeups at the leaderships, and like I said, accidents involving things that are maybe flying really fast and suddenly they need to they don't need to they come to an abrupt stop, explode. In particular, it could also involve fireworks, and I'm not saying it because 4th of July, usually in the US, of course, there are fireworks with the Independence Day, but rather because actually in the past there was this, and I forgot to write it down, but there was this really major situation, and I think it's in Denmark, a really major explosion of the fireworks that weren't properly stored. So this could involve something along those lines where there's something that's flammable, and of course we have this really hot time, in July, at least in Northern Hemisphere, and things may just again be improperly stored or overheat, or something rams into whatever's facility, truck, or whatever it may be, I don't know. But basically things that can overheat and reach sort of limits, which is this Uranus, too fast or go over the limits. And of course I would say this is not the time to take risks or participate in any risky activities. And if somebody's an athlete competing at the time, I would also advise them to very much be super careful, or perhaps I would not be holding any sort of races at that time in terms of the athletic events, if it were me. Let's see. So at the same time, there may also be increased news about any sort of space exploration or any advancements, technological, especially involving airplanes, aerospace, electricity. And there could be some news about space rockets, drones, airplanes. However, there's also increased probability of some of these projects going wrong, like something doesn't reach or overheats, overshoots the target, etc. And let's see. And especially, I would say, through July 9th, but especially July, I guess even 1 through 7 is when we may hear about some problems related to either airlines, airplanes, telecommunications, social media companies, or even currency exchanges, cryptocurrency exchange entities, banks and financial institutions where there may be either service disruptions, power outage service disruptions, but also there's an increased probability of things either being hacked or leaked or some data losses. And again, things may be very surprising, come out of nowhere. And at the same time, there may also be tensions or some surprising financial policies announced, or or whatever the policies or the changes that are related to, say, finance, but again also currencies and cryptocurrencies. They may also elicit anger and either protests or anger or some concerns about profits or stability. And again, these could be just anger expressed online somewhere, or they could trigger actual protests. And at that time, so that's end of June and early July, market may drop down because of all these tensions. And finally, at that time, there may also be increased negotiations related to like sales or acquisition of things or of products related to, again, oil, gas, navy, pharmaceuticals, and by navy I mean actual ships or weapons that are somehow used on and through water. I don't know what that might be, but maybe, I don't know, submarines or some weapons that are on the ships, perhaps somehow. And at the same time, those news may be somewhat concerning, where maybe there's some contamination of, say, water or an oil spill or some problem that is basically causing some concerns about safety. Maybe this could be, a spread of the virus of some sort. It doesn't have to be COVID, could be just, some other, food poisoning or something like that. But it could be something that's like or some bacterial contamination of, again, water, say potable water on a ship, something like that. So there may be some difficulties in addition to the time early July, late June being just a difficult time, even geopolitically in terms of disasters and weather. There may also be these problems related to kind of either excessive precipitations or for businesses related to oil, navy, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, etc. And I guess here I have a note for myself that it's not a good time for peaceful vacations. So I'm just making that note because obviously this is the time where many people will take off because of just it being summer and holidays, typical holiday period. So let's see. So then moving on to the rest of July. So for 17th through the 19th of July, this again may be a time where gold prices may fluctuate more than usual. Perhaps they will go up, and it could be rather due to some financial policy changes out of US or some fluctuations in the US dollar value. And then on the 20th through the 26th of July, there may be a drop in gold prices. So initially 17th and 19th, there may be a rise in gold prices. And then the 20th through the 26th, they may drop, or regardless of the direction, probably the value of gold may change, or the gold price, I guess, trajectory will change direction. So 17th through 19th, one direction, I think it will be up for gold. And then 20th through the 26th, a reversal in the direction, I think it will be down for gold. And at both of those times, we may expect some increased news about, again, changes in the value of US dollar and or some financial policy changes or decisions or important announcements out of the US. And especially on the 20th through the 26th, they may not even necessarily be actual decisions announced, but just rather the expectation of these decisions coming sort of soon. The market may react just to the expectation of there being, soon some sort of a decision. And especially 23rd and the 24th, and 23rd being the Friday, so 23rd, I guess what primarily of July is when there may be, again, some news about either policies, financial policy of the US, news about the US dollar value and or gold prices. Excuse me. And then the 27th through 31st of July, there may be also a time of large market moves. Perhaps at that point there will be some sell-offs, profit-taking activities, And at the same time, there may be increased news about like foreign relations, immigration, deals with foreign, I guess, partners, long distance travel and transportation. And there may be news about laws and regulations that somehow are kind of either upsetting or protested. They may be related to weapons, transporting flammable materials, or movement perhaps of troops. So the very end of July also looks significant with time where we may see large market moves and some important legal decisions. Let's see. Now moving on to August. The 8th through the 10th of August may yet again see increased news about either excessively wet weather or developments related to Neptunian subjects such as oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, also music, religion, and also lies and deception, anything that's like confusing and unclear. And at that point, there may be some concerns or either questions about either profits, are they real, or is something overvalued, like, oil specifically, some sort of a medicine, or even the movie, like if there's a movie produced that's released at that time, there may be concerns that basically, is it going to bring the money that it was spent on making it, and there may be a major market drop followed by the rise. So maybe Monday the 9th may see a drop in the market followed by a rally back to up on the 10th. But either way, there may be a sharp sort of direction change around that time. So the 8th through the 10th of August. 10th also looks generally 10th and maybe 11th, but especially 10th looks like an important date where there may be an important announcement related to either healthcare, international relations, so import-export, sort of military partnerships, military exercises, as well as education. So perhaps, teachers' unions may have a protest or just some decision that needs to be made about, who and how you should be and will be teaching. And there may also be some increased demands by teachers, which I guess it makes sense that will be in August, is sort of the time before the beginning of the new school year, typically. There may also be some important announcements about transportation, especially long distance transportation. And at that time, the news may be something that maybe an issue was settled, and especially legally, such as the contract was signed, the law was passed, to regulate these areas. And again, healthcare, education, and long distance travel especially. Then the 13th through the 31st of August, and I would say especially the 20th through the 27th, yet again, there may be news out of US about some changes in either US policies or fluctuations in the value of US dollar. And at that time, we may also see changes probably to up for gold. So I guess almost the entire second half of August, 13th through the 31st, may see this increased news about gold, but also especially the 20th through the 27th. Then 23rd through the 25th of August may see, again, news about like oil, excessive precipitation, pharmaceuticals, navy, etc. At that time, the focus may be on contracts, shipments, deals, sales, acquisition, etc. And at that time, if there's a pending agreement or shipment that needs to depart, there may be some disagreements about it or some issues with timing. And the market may also go down at that time. That's 23rd through the 25th of August. 25th through the 26th of August may see increased focus on prices of various pharmaceuticals or any treatments or medicines, and there may be concerns about those prices being too high, something being overvalued basically. And if, say, there's a contract pending about some acquisition of some company or something, the value of that may be too high or something may be overpriced. Let's see, then moving on to the very end of August, so 31st of August through, I would say, about the 4th of September, and especially September 1st through the 3rd, is another time period where there now may be increased news about either excessively wet weather or oil or gas, pharmaceuticals, navy, any sort of transportation of either oil or via water. And at that time, things may be a little bit combative. Maybe there's some tensions involving navy, or tensions involving, say, oil shipments, or perhaps accidents involving maybe oil leak or oil transportation, maybe even a leak that leads to, say, a fire. But basically this very end of August into early September looks tense for those kind of industries, as well as there's increased probability of there being an accident, but like I said, oil leak or oil spill, or problems with transportation of some chemical or pharmaceutical or oil and gas. And this may create some dangerous situation, from like fires to dangers to, say, marine life, or contamination of water or some area, unfortunately. And the market may go down also at the same time, which would be in the early September, especially September 2nd, may see a big drop. Then September 4th through 6th, so right after this kind of slightly difficult tense period, there may be some news about either military or military, military might, or some strength, show of strength or buildup of military somehow, trying, various countries trying to impress one another with their military power, or strengthening the military, maybe giving military more money. And again, this is a global prediction, so multiple countries may be engaged in something like that. And also there may be increased focus on nuclear power, basically. Could be weapons, could be nuclear power plants, and so again, some sort of either strengthening or perhaps acceleration of some developments related to that. And in terms of the stock market, there may be a swing to up after this initial drop especially around the 2nd of September. 6th of September, which is Monday, may actually see an upswing. So maybe the Friday, the 2nd, 3rd, of September may see market going down, but then the 6th, Monday, over the weekend, things may turn to up. But regardless of the direction, the 2nd, 3rd, and the 6th of September look like major sort of days where market may swing kind of more than usual. Then the 22nd through the 24th of September is a time where there is some difficult negotiations or concerns about taxes, tariffs, and rates. There may be some surprising developments or value fluctuations related to banks, financial institutions, currencies, including cryptocurrencies and forex. And perhaps there could be like some value of some currency may drop, or if there's some bank stock, its value may not accidentally, but unexpectedly drop as well. Or if they're undergoing negotiations about some sales, for example, they may not succeed. Or perhaps they do succeed and there's an agreement, but the agreed upon price or value may be surprisingly much like lower or higher than expected. And at the same time, which is the 22nd through the 24th of September, there may be increased news about either IT, airlines, electric cars, power generating companies, IT, airlines, airplanes, aerospace projects, and for those kind of companies, there may be sudden value changes and or change in the price of their, say, products. Let's see, and then the 28th through September, through the 4th of October, may see some follow-up to the negotiations that perhaps were occurring on the 22nd through the 24th of September. And if, say, agreement was not reached on the 24th through the 22nd through the 24th of September, it may now be reached at the very end of the month of September and into like 4th of October, especially around the 28th of September, or perhaps an agreement or contract, was reached, the deal was signed early on the 22nd through 24th of September. Now, at the end of the month into early October, there may be an addendum to that, or some additional information may be included. And this additional information or conditions, they may be basically involve some additional details being penciled in, especially about taxes, tariffs, prices. And if a deal was reached or partly reached earlier in September, the price or the value may be higher by the end of September into early October. So this addendum may be to increase price or to basically something is now going to be valued higher than it was earlier in September, or the asking price may be higher than before, or the tariff or the tax or something like that may be higher than even previously agreed. Let's see. And at the same time, this end of 28th of September through about the 4th of October may see excessive sort of this hype or optimism about the ongoing negotiations. So that's why I'm saying maybe the price will be higher at this time, because if, let's say, something that was discussed 22nd through the 24th of September, an agreement was not reached, if negotiations then resume at the end of September, at this point, whoever was asking for, say, a certain price, now they will be asking for even more money, or there may be an addendum to kind of somehow take even more profit out of that, and the time will be kind of, there may be even more optimism about the developments, and so investors may be kind of looking at things with even kind of, I guess, will be more even willing to pay more come end of September into early October. And let's see, now moving on to October proper. 8th through the 10th of October, which is Friday through Sunday, may see some news about important negotiations, contracts, and sales, as well as international deals, tariffs, import-export, immigration, long-distance travel, and transportation. And something that comes to mind would be like a trade deal, like a major trade deal or military cooperation agreement. And the deal may involve somehow old partners, so maybe old partners coming together, or old, deal is being reinstated or reverting to an old arrangement. And the deal itself may not be as popular with greater public because perhaps of some increased associated expenses. So maybe the concerns could be, say, if it's a national deal, that maybe some countries will have to pay out more than others. 15th through the 19th of October may see news about some sale or contract or shipment related to pharmaceuticals, medical care, could be maybe like vaccines, for example, and most likely it will involve international partners, so maybe shipment of some sort of pharmaceutical medication across the borders. And especially the 18th seemed to be an important date here, where some decision may be made, where if something was pending perhaps, or like maybe under consideration on the 18th, it may go forward, or vice versa. If something was going through, or there was an arrangement for something to be shipped, it may be kind of reversed by the 18th. But more likely, if something was pending, it will be finalized and allowed to go through on the 18th. And let's see. And additionally, there may be some clarified, details, maybe like by when something should happen, what exactly is included, like what's the legal status. Like, for example, like if social media company is asking for some specifics, like what, or social media company rather can clarify like what users can or cannot do, or maybe some deal has additional details clarified as to, for example, what can or cannot be shipped internationally under what circumstances. And that's 15th through the 19th of October, and especially 18th seems to be like the day where some decisions may be made that clarify, the situation. Then 17th through the 20th of October, is another sort of positive, opportune time for expanding businesses related to either military or weapons, IT, airlines, space exploration, electric, power companies, electric cars, high tech, anything related to like these kind of innovative, advanced technologies. There may be some deals signed, or perhaps a law is passed that somehow is beneficial for those companies. Maybe something is kind of is easier for them to expand, or to make a sale, for example, of something overseas, or maybe like say a company is allowed or to purchase or to sell engines or rockets or drones or parts for these kind of this kind of equipment. And that's 17th through the 20th of October. Then 17th through the 23rd of October, we have slightly different influence where, unfortunately, weather-wise, there may be again some volatile, not volatile, but rather kind of maybe slightly unusual, more unusual weather than usual, or other mudslides. Perhaps there could be floods and leading to mudslides or increased probability of major earthquakes, as well as some protests and violence, just because people may be a little bit more on edge at that time, and or these protests may be associated with the agreement reached on the 17th through the 20th of October. So perhaps there may be some, discontent over that. Then let's see, then October 25th through the 27th, yet again may see news about either excessively wet weather or oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, also beverages, religion, music, movies, etc. And there again may be like a fairly major drop, especially the 26th may see, maybe like a day where the market may drop, followed by a reversal to up shortly after, like the next day or two. And this could be related, the reason for a drop could be related to international negotiation, especially about sales or transportation of oil or of some pharmaceutical. And also the value of the related products and services and companies, again, oil, pharmaceuticals, for example, may be perceived as being too high. And so there may be concerns about the value of basically, or profits, concerns about profits. And so therefore, there may be news about change in the value of these products or services and about losses for the associated companies. So perhaps losses could be due to some of the products or services being devalued, or perhaps due to some damages, maybe oil is spilled or some medicine is damaged during shipment. And that's for the end of October, especially 25th through the 27th. So moving on to November of 2021. 4th of November stands out like an important day. It's a new moon, and it will see opposition to Uranus on the new moon, so the entire month may be again a month of surprises, especially related to banks, financial institutions, something like taxes, tariffs, rates, etc. The 8th through the 12th of November may see bad weather, accidents, increased protest, tensions, etc., as well as earthquakes, mudslides, various disasters. Market may also go down at that time, and that could be on the concerns about some slowed or delayed negotiations, delayed sales, or about concerns about debt, loans, taxes, rates, or insurance. So perhaps if there's like investors are awaiting news about some loan or some investment kind of financing going through and things are delayed, there may be, concerns may affect the stock market, or there may be concerns about some excessive arguments over, again, availability of financing, but also about regulations for the areas related to like IT, high-tech, airlines, social media, telecommunications, electric cars, etc. And there could be either concerns that are about basically the physical companies, how well they're doing, or there may be just some arguments basically online, and concerns about the basically the news, the coverage of these events. And specifically there may be some concerns that some events are not covered either properly, or information is missing, or somebody is not telling the truth, or vice versa. Somebody becomes like a whistleblower, and there's concerns about that person and basically what they're saying and their safety. And that's again 8th through the 12th of November. There may be some negative news related to either like social media or newspapers, so either individuals or entities that are somehow associated with communicating, again, be it through like actual printed paper or online. And there may be also increased focus in the news on either safety or freedom of the actual entities that are involved in communication. Again, could be individual journalists or certain publishers, or vice versa. There may be discussion just in the news on those platforms about things like, the freedom of the expression or freedom of the press. Basically, is somebody going too far by saying something like a whistleblower or not? So the discussion may be involving, again, a particular individual. If I say it's a particular journalist, doesn't involve a particular newspaper, or it just could be that on those kind of platforms there may be more increased discussion of those topics, and that's 8th through the 12th of November. Then 12th through the 14th of November may see surprising news or news about new projects related to IT, telecommunications, airlines, space exploration, electric power, etc. And again, there may be another round of sort of discussion either in the news or about, particular journalists or particular media outlets. And focus maybe on the freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, or maybe perhaps how much is, I guess, too much is the limit, reached on, basically. And what is this limit, who is allowed to say what? Or there could be even discussion about some particular journalist. If somebody say were to be not allowed to speak or not allowed to even move, maybe unfortunately they get trapped in some country or something like that. There may be some news or some push for like maybe freeing some journalist or allowing that journalist or somebody express themselves in the media where there's some concern about what they're saying, whether or not they should be allowed to sort of exceed certain limits or not. And then the 15th through the 20th of November, especially the 17th, may see yet another round of sort of increased arguments about, again, the same issue of this freedom of the press, freedom of speech. And it could be involving either individual, like I said, say newspaper or media outlet or individual journalist, or it could be just that there may be more discussions on those media platforms about these topics. And at the same time, at that point, which is the 15th through the 20th, and especially the 17th of November, the discussions that are more like, in this communication space may start leading to actual like either protests or even some attacks or violence, in the physical space, unfortunately. And at the same time, there may be increased probability of actual accidents involving flying objects such as, airplanes, drones, or even space projects going wrong, fires, excessive winds, explosions. So again, there may be actual protests at this time, but also accidents, and that's 15th through the 20th of November. And the very end of November, let's see, the 22nd through the 25th may see increased news about new leaders, especially some individuals who are involved in like foreign, I guess, affairs, maybe another ambassadors or diplomats or judges, some individuals who are very well like educated and known internationally, and or they could be leaders that are involved with international communication and transportation. And this could be, again, like a male and a younger male, somebody who is maybe just fresh, and perhaps there is a surprise about somebody becoming a leader with less, I guess, than usual experience. And then at the end of November 27th through December 2nd, rather, yet again, there may be increased news about pharmaceuticals, oil, contamination, perhaps spread of some either disease or just contamination with water, maybe excessive floods, because again, at this time, on the one hand, we may hear about too much water, like literally it's flowing and flowing and just it's not stopping, and flowing across, borders, across any sort of boundaries. At the same time, if there are projects that are involved in, say, shipping something via water, or in spreading news about something, say some sort of, I don't know, religious belief or something like that, at that time, or even it could be news that's actually like, if quote unquote fake news, something that's like somewhat more deceptive or confusing at that time, or like a rumor, at that time, 27th of November through the 2nd of December, those things may spread kind of more easily than at other times. Which again, on the one hand, it could be, some inspirational news, or it could be news about, something that's deceptive, or it could be, it could be easier to, say, ship something over water, but there may also be, say, too many ships, floating somewhere at the same time. So there may also be increased probability of spread of some infectious disease through, the shipments or travel over water. So I'm thinking of like a, cruise ship or something like that, experiencing some, spread of some, infectious disease at that time, something along those lines. Then moving on to December 3rd through the 10th of December, and especially the 6th through the 8th, could see larger than usual market moves. Perhaps there will be like sell-offs, taking of profits, and also increased news for currencies, forex currencies, and also moves in gold. And there could be increased news, especially 6th through the 8th of December, about like international deals, partnerships, and associated conditions like tariffs, perhaps. And there may be perhaps some tensions or arguments over what exactly those should be, like tariffs, for example, or what should be the condition of this international deal. And let's see, at the same time, this also 6 and 8 especially, there may be news about financial policies changes out of the US, and fluctuations in the value of US dollar. Then the 13th through the 17th of December may see news about governmental regulations of related to financials, maybe taxes, tariffs, insurance, rates, and any sort of decisions related to especially governmental, like debt and loans. So there may be some new laws and regulations announced that involve either more financial controls, or addressing somehow debt, or affecting investments that are, something like maybe government issued securities prices, or some investments that are specifically controlled by government, again, maybe like bank rates or something like that. So the 13th through the 17th of December may see a lot. That's globally, that's not just for the US, but at the same time, there may also be specifically increased news about financial policies out of the US. So, and that's also the same time I see there may be fluctuations in the value of gold all at one time. And again, the dates, the entire month seems to be significant, but especially dates that come up again and again are 6th through the 8th of December. And then the second half of the month, so I'd say 15th through the 31st of December, may see again the intensification of the Uranus and Saturn square. So again, there may be some increased sort of arguments between two different maybe approaches, ideologies, or just approaches to, say, developments, even scientific developments, or to basically implementing some progressive policies or something. And so there could be, protests with one side kind of arguing for some more liberal kind of ideas or for freedoms, and another side arguing for kind of taking things slowly, implementing perhaps excessive checks, slowing things down, doing things the old way. And in December specifically, these kind of approaches, let's rush forward and maybe without any limits, without too many checks, just kind of to overturn things. And the other approach being, okay, let's slow down and take a close look and be proceeding really carefully but super slowly. So those particular kind of two different trends of thought, so to speak, or approaches may be clashing specifically over finance, as in like debt, loan, perhaps how to deal with debt, or how to make sure that, I guess, loans are available for the businesses. And there may be some really major disagreements about that in, like I said, second half of December. And these may also coincide with a market drop and some volatility in the currencies, especially cryptocurrencies. And I would say especially the 13th through the 16th of December may be particularly tense, and that's when we may hear more about specific either agreements reached, or new leaders may come up with some new, more kind of risky, aggressive ideas, or there may also be market drop coming into like January of 2022 associated with similar concerns, and that would be around January 10th of, like I said, 2022. So even though I'm gonna stop on in December of 2021, but January 2022 may also, early January 10th especially, may see continuation of some of these kind of discussions, and again concerns about let's say debt and financial regulations, and arguments over those will continue into 2022. Let's see, so that's pretty much it in terms of just the general overview of the year, and I will be separately posting predictions that will look at developments or potential developments in the US and China for 2021. I will link that later in this video and in the description when it's available. You can also visit my blog at lastunga.com. I will be typing all of this up into a blog so you can then go back and reread this as many times as you would like. Until I guess next time, come back, check out my weekly videos, and have a terrific 2021, everyone. Okay, bye.